So let's talk about the NFL just for a little bit. Football season started last night, and our announcer here is actually the voice of the Dallas Cowboys. I played football in high school. Well, I've loved football. But I began seeing, did you know your brain is really soft? About the consistency of soft butter? And your skull is really hard and it has multiple sharp bony ridges? And so I began seeing football players, high school players, college players, and then professional players, and nearly all of them had evidence of brain damage. And as I said, the NFL formed its concussion committee in 1994, but it never sponsored an imaging study. Instead, and I'm serious when I said this, they studied rats. They put little tiny helmets on rats. And they would whack them in the head repeatedly. And then they go, well, we just don't know if playing football causes long-term brain damage. The commissioner said that in front of Congress. And Maxine Waters, the congresswoman from Los Angeles, smacks him and says, Commissioner, acting like you are studying brain damage in football is a conflict of interest. It's like the tobacco companies saying they're studying lung cancer. So stop lying. In 2007, Anthony Davis came to my clinic. He's the Hall of Fame running back from USC. He played 8 years in the NFL, and his brain looked very damaged. And on the program I put him on, much like what I'm going to tell you, he got dramatically better. And Anthony is the sweetest, most outgoing person. And he wrote the commissioner a letter who didn't write back. But then he got me to speak at the Retired NFL Players Association. And I was horrified by what I saw. The level of depression, dementia, one player, and a player that I'd idolized growing up in LA, he was a Los Angeles Ram. He asked me the same question in the lecture 6 times. And I was just horrified. And I thought, somebody's got to do an imaging study. And then, of course, I have the voice in my head that said, well, why don't you do it? You have technology, you have experience. So we did it. So the problem with the NFL's position, and I'm dead serious when I say this, is if you don't admit you have a problem, you can't do anything to solve it. So, if you have a problem in your life or in your marriage or in your business, the first way to solve it is go, help, I have a problem. So brain damaged players were left without help or hope, and then everybody knows what's happened. We had players like Junior Seau, shoot themselves in the chest so they could donate their brain, or Dave Duerson, or it's just a nightmare. So we started and did the world's first and largest imaging study. The images changed everything. So here is our first published study on 100 players, and we said, hey, guess what, guys? There's global damage in football players' brains. But I'm a clinical psychiatrist, so I have great respect for researchers, but that's not my gig. My gig is changing people's lives. And so when we started our study, and I paid for this study, I went, uh-oh. We have to do a second arm of the study. Can we make these bad brains better? And so I put them on a program, the same one I'm going to tell you, which is brain envy, you got to care. You need to stop doing this. Smoking pot is not going green. One of my players actually said, well, I thought that was going green. Half of our players were obese. And so we actually had an NFL weight loss group where, they ended up losing thousands of pounds. It was really awesome. And we put them on nutrients, much like EHT. So here's an example. Duval Love was an offensive guard for the Rams for 12 years. He's morbidly obese. His brain looked awful, awful, awful. I'll show you the before and after in a little bit. So we published this study. 80% of our players show improvement. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. especially in memory, attention, mood, sleep, and blood flow to the brain. So here's Duvall's brain, before and after. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. You just have to be a warrior. You have to be serious about it. So this is me. I always felt like I was 4 years old standing next to these people. But look, he's 110 pounds lighter because he cares. And one of my favorite players, you'll recognize him, Freddie Dreyer, played for the Rams, who was on Hunter. He said, with the treatments, I'd replaced a part of me that had slipped away. Going through the program, I noticed mental energy and thinking speed that he had lost. He was not stuck with what he had. He made it better.